Hi, it's me, up in New Zealand, and welcome back to my channel. In this channel, I'm gonna share with you guys my life here in New Zealand as a former international student and now a worker, as well as give you guys advice and tips when living here in New Zealand. In the first video, I'll give you guys some general understanding of New Zealand educational system, as well as give you guys some advice on how to choose the right kind of education provider. Either that will be a university, institute of technology and skills, or a private training establishment. And if you haven't watched that video, that will be in the link down in my description below for you to check out. And without further ado, let's get started. So after knowing what kind of education provider would be suitable for you, it's time to choose what institute or university to apply to. So there are certain criteria to be considered and prioritized to choose the right one for you. And here are what I would suggest. So one of the important factors to consider is major, or what kind of qualification or degree that you were taking, because this will relate it directly to what you want to study as well as what you're going to do after you graduate. So like I said in the previous video, there are certain degree, qualification or major that can only offer in a specific kind of education provider, either in the university or institute. So for example, if you like to be a doctor or a medical professional technician, it would be best, or it's only one choice, is that going to university. And specifically in this case, there are only two universities in New Zealand that can offer that qualification, is University of Auckland and University of Otago. One, Auckland will be in the North Island and Otago will be in the South Island. If you want to study something that more practical, require more applied learning, such as, and some niche major such as beautician or trade or construction related, then you can only apply in one of the Te Pūkenga or PTE, private training establishment. For this reason, you need to do your own research to find out which all university or school or institute that will offer the preferred major that you're interested in, and then you can put in a short list to compare in terms of other factors that I will mention in this video. Related to major, some international students might be interested in applying for working visa or resident visa after they graduate, and there are certain major or job that are listed as shortest of skills. So any job that are listed in this list that are considered shortest, and that will give you a great advantage when applying for the visa. If you're interested, there's a link down below to check all of the major that count as the shortage skills. This is just for consideration, and I'm not suggesting you to choose a major based solely on these major, because shorter skills can be changing year to year, and it might be finished or it's not gonna be shortest anymore once you graduate from their skills. So as I said, I'm not gonna suggest that, but it will be a good guideline for you if you're already interested in certain industry that got that kind of role or job related to that industry that got listed in this list, so that you consider and applying to when you sign up for schools or university. Another factor that are interested a lot of students is scholarship. So there are two kinds of scholarship. One is offered directly by the institute or university to a specific major or faculty, and another one is offered by the government, either New Zealand government for international student or your country government offer that specific scholarship for you to come over here to study and then can come back to your own country after you graduate so you can contribute your knowledge. Typically, university would offer more scholarship option for international students because, as I said before, they have a lot of fun for researching for students. So it's good for you to check on their website to see what are scholarship eligible for international students. I will make a video related to what kind of scholarship that can be available for you to apply study here in New Zealand, as well as how to apply for it. So that will be in another video. But in this video, I would generally say that you don't got much choices for what university to choose for the specific kind of scholarship because you're applying for scholarship, so you have to wait for them to be accepted and to be offered that specific kind of scholarship. But if you have more than one offer, that will be a good thing, and then you can put it in the short list what specific university that you would choose based on the other factor that I will mention. Another important factor is location. So there are many criteria related to location for you to consider. So the first thing is the actual location. So that will be either the North Island or the South Island because there are some differences and some specific feature of each island can offer. So in my biased experience of traveling, I would say South Islands is a wonderful place to live if you love nature because the scenery there is just magnificent. And you will see on all the picture that about New Zealand or the great scenery, I would say 80% of it are taken in the South Islands because that's just out of the world and there's no word to describe the beauty of it. So that will be perfect place to live. If you love nature, you love hiking activities, you love some adventurous activity like snowboarding, jet skiing, all kind of sport that related to nature. When you live there, it's just so easy to access and to enjoy the beautiful nature. To be fair, North Island also have its own beauty and great scenery. You can still find some activity down in the South Island, here in the North Island, but I would say the experience, the extremeness, I don't think it will be the same levels. However, North Island also has its own perks because it's have three biggest city in New Zealand. One of which is Auckland, obviously the biggest city in New Zealand and the most populated city. And then we also have Wellington is our capital, which is also in the North Island. And also fourth biggest city is Hamilton, where I'm currently living at. So I would say if you like more vibrant vibes and living in big city vibes, being modern, being fast-paced living, then yes, choose a big city like Auckland or Wellington because they have so many kind of great facility, things to access and experience in a typical big city would be offered. and because they are typically bigger, they will have more investment on the facility and infrastructure, so that will be easier when you live. Speaking of big city, it also came with more amenity and conveniences. What I mean by this is that you have more option of life and conveniences, and especially when it comes to grocery and buying some specific specialized grocery when you are from a foreign country, such as Asian grocer, and the price would be a bit cheaper because they will be competitive against each other. So yes, there will be more option to choose from, such as Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese. There will be more, and the most important about conveniences is public transport. In New Zealand, the infrastructure is not as advanced compared to other developed countries because the population in general is not big enough to invest in a more accessible public transport, and most of it just focused in big cities such as Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington, or Hamilton, which are also four biggest cities in New Zealand. So if you live in any other city that I just listed, I would say it's not really easy for you to access public transport, and there will be not much to access. The time between different routes will be longer, and in order to access from city to city or traveling around, that will be a bit of a headache if you don't have your own vehicle, because train here is not that advanced. It's only between specific big city, and mostly will be accessed by bus, and they don't have much time located for every day, so they're only specific time that you can choose from if you want to plan your travel. But other than that, if you have your own vehicle, that shouldn't be a big problem. Living in big city also come with living with a lot of people and bigger population. However, the bigger the city, the more variety of nationality and ethnical community for you to connect and get support, and it will be good platform for you to reach for help and sharing life tips, and just making more friends that from your own country. And there will be some festival and some connecting events for you to attend to, just to reach out and networking. You can easily find this community or platform on Facebook for connect. And the way to search is quite simple. Just put in your nationality, following by living in the city in New Zealand, or just living in New Zealand, and you can easily find out to reach out, connect, and share things and talk. Another important factor to be considered in location is living cost. So this one is a bit tricky to define because that would be rely on the living expenses and accommodation, as well as lifestyles. So if it comes to accommodation, bigger city obviously will be a bit higher compared to smaller city. Auckland in specific, everything expensive there, and because they have so many people living there, so there's not much land or accommodation offer, and of course the price would be higher compared to other city in New Zealand. When it comes to living expenses, well, if you compare like just traveling with public transport, Auckland offer more option of public transport, and the price will typically be lower if you're just using that. But petrol will be quite high there, and like generally parking, that will be a headache, especially when you live in the city center. Other city, the price will be typically more reasonable, and specifically in the South Island, the living costs, I would say, generally lower than the North Island, especially when it comes to accommodation, because the population is less and the renting rate is not as high there. I will do a video related to living costs here in New Zealand as a student, as well as give you guys some advice on how to be more savvy with your spending. But this will be in one video in the future. When it comes to living costs, you should consider also the fact that you can work here part-time or for 20 hours a week, and you can use that earning to pay off most of your living expenses if you have the right budgets and the right lifestyle. And to be fair, living in the big city, it does have more expenses, it'd be a bit more expensive, but then you have more job opportunity to apply to and to change in between. So that will be a bit payoff for your expenses. But if you live in a smaller city, there will be less job opportunity. And then if you cannot, in the worst case scenario, if you cannot have any part-time job after your study, then you will have to pay with your own saving, your own fund, or your family fund, and the exchange rate gonna be a bit of a headache for you to use when it comes here, unless you are from a better rate country like UK or the US. Then yeah, it's not too bad. But I would recommend working to get the life experience and as well as paying off some of your expenses. Another criteria when choosing a location is the temperature and the climate of that location. North Island is known for its warmer temperature and milder climate compared to the South Island, where it will be a bit colder. And the lower you go to, obviously the colder because it's nearer to the Antarctica. And some of the location there even have snow in the winter compared to the North Island, where we barely ever have any snow. Another thing to consider, which is not really someone want to know about but need to know, is natural disaster. Compared to some place in the world, New Zealand don't have as severe, well-known natural disaster such as in Japan or Indonesia, but they do suffer from several natural disasters such as earthquake or tsunami. And most of the severe natural disaster that happen in New Zealand history generally happen in the South Island. And especially when it comes to earthquake, the lower you go from Wellington down to the South Island, the more risk there is for the earthquake. And city along the coast, for example, the East Coast will experience a lot of storm and heavy rain because obviously they're near the sea. However, if you like beach life and surfing or fresh seafood, it's still a great place to live. If you would like to know more details about life in specific city or region, you can refer to the link below of different place in city in New Zealand, and they would link to their website of that city or region. For example, Auckland, Waikato, Wellington, Wanganui, and then they all have their own information about that city. Another great factor to consider is the student support and lifestyle when choosing the specific institute or university you would like to study. So in the previous video, I forgot to mention that university has its own advantage in having more activity organized and arranged for students, and specifically they have more clubs and social community to interact. And one interesting fact to mention when it comes to student lifestyle and student support is Otago is known for is the whole city to know run by students. So there are a lot of students living in Otago. So you would reckon the lifestyle there will be very young and vibrant, and you will have a lot of chance to meet and connect with students down in Otago. So these are some factors that I would generally consider when choosing a right university or institute for myself, and that I would give you advice to consider when choosing for yourself. A lot of students might wondering, what about ranking? In some country in the world, you would typically find the ranking list of top university or top institute for specific major or something like that. Here in New Zealand, since they mostly owned by the government and control the quality, so the quality is similar between most of the university or institute, so you don't have to really worry about that. And I haven't found an official Study in New Zealand website that mention about ranking, so that I think it shouldn't be a factor for you to consider too much. If you like my video and my channel, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the notification button, so when my next video coming up, you guys can be the first one to watch. So see you guys.